समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या समझ में नहीं आया?
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है, अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
As we begin watching this episode of Kartak Letter, I know the first question of mine. What is this? What is this ancient machine doing sitting next to me? Why this relic of the past is sitting here? Thereby lies a story which I will tell you as we conclude this episode. So please stay with me. This episode is about Assam. And this episode is about something that happened in Assam 42 years ago. This is not a first person second draft. This is a Kartak letter. The reason is that Assam government, all credit to them, Himanta Biswa Sarma, so thank you for doing this, compliments to you. Himanta Biswa Sarma's government has presented in the State Assembly the two inquiry reports in the massacres and killings of 1983 February, the Assam elections. That's an event, or that's a juncture in our history that is headlined by the unfortunate, horrible Nellie Massacre. Now there are these two reports that Assam government has put on the floor of the House. One is the official report. That is the official report of the Commission of Inquiry set up under the Commission of Inquiry Act. That is the formal report of the TP Tewary Commission. TP Tewary Commission. TP Tewary was Tribhuvan Prasad Tewary, a distinguished IAS officer from Uttar Pradesh. He was also given to assist him two retired IAS officers, two more retired IAS officers, S. Manoharan and R.C. Jain. This is the official inquiry. There is also an unofficial inquiry, unofficial non-judicial inquiry. It was set up by activists at that point. That is headed by Justice T.U. Mehta, who was a former Chief Justice of Himachal Pradesh government. But because that is non-official and non-judicial, I'm not going into that because they did not have the power to summon anybody, particularly officers, or summon any documents. I'm leaving that aside. Although that report describes what happened in 1983 in its title, in the title of the report, as Assam's Holocaust. I am leaving that aside. I am focusing on the official inquiry commission. Now, the official inquiry commission, what were the basic questions they went into? Number one, was that election so necessary? Election that people did not want at that point of time, to which there was such an opposition. Was it necessary for the government to hold that election? That election was in such a shambles ultimately that in many cases, in most cases in Brahmaputra Valley, the voting percentages were lower than they might have been in the Kashmir Valley at the worst of times. I say that with a sense of responsibility, having covered that election, and all of this data is available. This is formally sitting on the Election Commission website. One candidate won by 100% votes. 100% votes means all 267 votes cast. His rival could not even go and cast his own vote. One more had only 7 votes cast in his constituency and won. I think someone else got 1. And even his wife could not go out and vote. It was that kind of election. So was it necessary? Because the violence came in the wake of the election. That's the first question. The second question is, what was the role of the Assam agitators, that is AGSP and ASU? Were they responsible for any of the violence, etc.? Number three, was this violence communal? In fact, I would today say, with the wisdom of hindsight, that I would put that as the first question that the commission should have answered. They have answered it. I will explain it to you. And the fourth, so many people died. The commission suggests about 3,000 to 4,000 people died. By my count, and that is something that also features in my book, which I wrote in 1983, Assam, A Valley Divided. By my count, about 7,000 people died because Assam was then a very remote place. Many districts of Assam, you had to walk for many days to get there, particularly during that election. And so many bridges had been burned. Agitators had even pulled out milestones and thrown them on the roads. So it was very difficult to travel, and bodies were recovered. Bodies kept on getting recovered much later. There were mass graves, there were rotting bodies floating in the rivers, etc. Now, who was responsible? Was anybody responsible? Now, the commission has answered all of these questions. It's a 556-page report. So I decided to read and digest it. That's why I could not come to you with this cut the clutter on the day the report was released, which was a couple of days prior to this, because I really wanted to read this. Now, what are the commission's answers? First of all, I'll give you the broad answers, and then I will take you into some detail, some of it with first person knowledge, and some of it literally from reading out from this old book of mine. Now, the commission says, first of all, that it was not even necessary, but it was essential that the government, in that case Mrs. Gandhi's government, hold that election. Just because a section of people have a grievance, or maybe people of a state have a grievance, it doesn't mean that they can hold off an election forever. It is the constitutional responsibility of a government to hold elections, and also it is the responsibility of a government in Delhi to make sure that the writ of the government runs in every part of the country. This was a juncture where nothing could be done in Assam. No elected government, no government out of the earlier assembly would last more than a few months. They'll be pulled down. 1981 census could not be held in Assam because of this opposition. The crude oil pulled out of Assam's oil wells, India's first oil wells on India's land were found in Assam, Digboy, etc. We know about that. That crude oil could not go through the pipelines to Barauni, the refinery, which was meant to refine that crude oil. That crude oil had been blocked. When Assam agitators called a curfew, it was a total curfew. When the government called a curfew, Assam agitators issued you a curfew pass, right? Because if you didn't have that, they would stop you. You might have a government curfew pass, and the police would honor that, but the agitators will catch you and ask for their own curfew pass. It was that kind of a situation. So the commission says it was not just necessary but essential that the government hold this election come what may. So that is a big endorsement for the government's action. In this case, a Congress government's action in Delhi. That is something that we need to underline. The second point, the responsibility of All Assam Students Union and All Assam Gan Sangram Parishad, AGSP. Once again, the commission says that they were both responsible for the violence. They are the ones who left no stone unturned in ensuring that the election does not take place, who enticed employees into non-cooperation, who led the campaign to attack government employees involved in the elections, and also attacks on candidates, etc. So they were responsible very much so for the violence that came in the wake of the election. The third and the fourth point I am flipping. So while I said communal point should have been the first, I am making it the last because I might talk about that a little bit longer. So the third point, the responsibility of the state, of the officials, of the central government, which was then governing Assam, which was under president's rule, the governor, the advisors to the governor, etc. That is the first cop out by the commission. The commission basically says there were a few lapses, but we don't know. The situation was so bad. Whether intelligence was good or bad is something that they debate. The commission debates, does not give you a finding. They say it is said the intelligence was not there or intelligence was there, but this was such an uncertain situation, etc., etc. So effectively, whether 3,500 or 4,000 people died, as the commission says, or the 7,000 people that I would say died, or many others believe in Assam died, it's still too many Indians that died unnecessarily. The commission says effectively that nobody could be held accountable for any of that. It's also a bit strange that the report is coming out now after 42 years, whereas the fact is that successive governments in Assam have had this report. So if the commission had blamed anybody, or if the commission had fixed any accountability, action could have been taken against some people, but nothing of the sort was done, because the commission itself does not blame anybody, barring some really junior fellows here and there. Which brings us to the communal aspect. Now, the communal aspect, the commission says this was not a communally motivated set of riots and killings. The commission says, and I think on this one the commission is quite fair, and not just because it matches with what I think I wrote or I felt or what I recorded in this book. The fact is that Assam, and the commission describes it in some detail, I will try to summarize it. Assam has many dividing lines. This book is called Assam, a Valley Divided. It's not just a valley divided because the Brahmaputra goes right through it. See the map of Assam, and you have half an Assam on the north bank, half on the south bank, or half of the Brahmaputra Valley on either side of the river. It's divided not just in that sense. It's divided on religious lines, on ethnic lines, on historical lines. So among the Muslims, for example, there are native Muslims of Assam, and there are also Muslims who came in as immigrants from Bangladesh, or what used to be East Pakistan, and before that East Bengal. Among the largest sets of migrants, among the largest migrations into Assam from Bengal took place in the 1920s and 30s from Mymensingh and Sylhet. They are the people who Himanta Biswa Sarma now refers to as Mia Manu. It's a pejorative. He says we have no problem with Muslims, which means native Muslims, ethnic Assamese Muslims. We have a problem with quote-unquote Mia Manu. That's a pejorative. Be careful. Now that is one set of dividing lines. Then there are other ethnic divisions. For example, between tribals and the Assamese plains people at that point in particular, because it was about land. Tribals thought these guys dominate us. The Assamese Hindus thought the tribals had taken their lands. Everybody who spoke Assamese had an issue with Bengali speakers. So that was a linguistic dividing line. That's why there were historical divisions, communal divisions, ethnic divisions, linguistic divisions, and the biggest division of all, which was at the root of much of this violence, was land. Because over time, different sets of immigrants came into Assam. Even the Ahoms into Assam, in Upper Assam, came in from deeper in the east, from as far as Thailand. Everybody in Assam was an immigrant of some kind. The Brahmins in Assam, for example, they were Brahmins who escaped North India, particularly Delhi, which was under successive Muslim conquests and depredations. So Brahmins scattered all over India. Some of them reached Assam as well. So everybody in Assam, in a way, barring some of the local tribes, was an outsider. Now what happened as new outsiders came in? Contest over land developed. So this was my land, and somebody more enterprising came and took this land. Either pushed me away or bought it out of me at a very low price, and then I started working on the same land. Now, this is where the British moved in. The British said this is too much. It's a headache. How do we manage it? So they drew imaginary lines on the map of Assam. And they said this line, the Bodos will stay up to this line, right? The Assamese Hindus will stay this side of this line, or the Muslim immigrants will stay behind this line, or the tribals will not go beyond this line. This was called the line system. Tensions were building up and simmering all of these decades along these lines. If you see the violence of 1983, much of the violence has taken place across these lines. So what is it that the Inquiry Commission says? The Commission says with great clarity that it is entirely unwarranted to give this violence communal color. If there is a Nellie, there is also a Chamaria or Nalbari, Gopur, Khairabari. Attackers and Hindus were both Hindus as well as Muslim. That is factually quite correct. See the names of the places that the Commission has mentioned. In these places, in Nellie, the victims were all Muslims, and the attackers were not really Hindus. The attackers were Lalung tribals. Lalungs, you can stretch things and say they are like Hindus. Today, they might be more Hindu than they used to be in 1983, more than 40 years back. But then they were animists, or people who worshipped their ancestors or their spirits. There were just about 85,000 people in all of Assam, a very small minority of tribals. The history was they had been pushed away from the lines, and this tension had developed through generations between Muslim immigrants who were more enterprising, hardworking. They knew modern cultivation, and the Lalungs, as a consequence, were driven into the foothills to a much poorer existence, and Lalungs were working on the Muslim fields, and that is how this resentment had been building up. Similarly, the other places that the commission mentions, Chamaria, many of these stories I covered and they are in the book. Chamaria is a place just about 50-60 kilometers from Guwahati, not far. Used to be then in the Kamrup district, to which Guwahati also belongs. Now these have become two separate districts. In Chamaria, in the southern part of the small town, at that point an overgrown village, Assamese Hindus lived. In the northern part lived not just the Muslims, but also Namashudras. Namashudras are a Dalit community, and the commission notes on the basis of many testimonies that the mobs attacking the Hindus in Chamaria were shouting both Allahu Akbar and Joy Ma Kali. Joy Ma Kali was being shouted by the Namashudras, and the Muslims were shouting Allahu Akbar. So they were attacking together. Hindus and Muslims together were attacking Hindus here. I will give you a para from my book as we go along. Similarly, if you go up east on the north bank of the Brahmaputra, in Gopur, again a series of really awful massacres took place. These massacres were mostly carried out by Assamese Hindus, and these were not massacres of Muslims. These were massacres of tribals, and whenever the tribals had got an opportunity, they killed Assamese Hindus as well. What was the issue there? The issue there was that they were reserve forests. Tribals had come and occupied the reserve forests. They had cut them. Forests barely existed in name, and in the process, they had also taken some lands which the Assamese Hindus thought were theirs. And almost on a daily basis for decades, fights took place, skirmishes took place across this line as well. And now, when this anarchy came, Hindus organized themselves and attacked the tribals, and tribals then came back with bows and arrows and swords, etc., daws and swords, etc. In fact, in one particular case that I have recorded also, one blacksmith was killed by the tribals because he refused to sharpen the points for their arrows. And just in case you think this is not already bewildering enough, at Khwairabari is not far from Mangaldoyi. See where it is on the map. At Khwairabari and Chavalkova, Chapori and Khwairabari. At Khwairabari, Assamese Hindus and Assamese Muslims got together and attacked Bengali-speaking Muslims, Bengali-speaking Muslim immigrants. The chants there among the attacking mobs were Jaya Yoham, which is glory to Mother Assam, and also Allahu Akbar. So Assamese Muslims were joining hands with Assamese Hindus to attack immigrant and also Bengali-speaking Muslims. The report details this fully. Again on the north bank of the Brahmaputra, see a place called Sipajhar. Not far from Sipajhar is Chavalkova, Chapori. Chapori is like a low-lying area along the river. Brahmaputra is a very big river, and what happens in the river is, in monsoon time, it's full of water. Then as waters recede, it produces islands because there are many areas come up where there is no water. Those are the areas where traditionally very hardy and very enterprising immigrant Bengali Muslims have thrived. They come and they plant one crop there. That's happened since the early 20th century, and they are very well embedded there. So in this low-lying area, Chavalkova, Chapori, a lot of the Hindu families were attacked by Muslims. At the same time, the Hindus and some Assamese Muslims got together to attack Muslim immigrants, Bengali-speaking Muslim immigrants, and also Bengali-speaking Hindus. Once again, if you look at the entire picture, there was no clear trend to the violence except that everybody was exercised most about their land, about language, ethnicity, but language, ethnicity, etc. followed the tension over who owned the land and who benefited from it. All of this has been mentioned in detail by the commission. Now, there are two things that we'll talk about. First of all, I will tell you the two incidents that the commission has used to tell you that this was not necessarily a communal conflagration. So one is Chamaria. The commission said Chamaria, that is where Namashudra, Hindus, Dalits and Muslims got together to attack the Hindus. So this is a para from my book. It says, it is difficult to club the clashes. It's my writing from 1983, so it could do with some editing, but it's the printed word. And I quote from it, it is difficult to club the clashes under any general term as communal, ethnic or linguistic. They were probably a combination of all factors, yet the first significant instance of what looked like communal clashes came in Kamrup district, barely an hour's drive away from Guwahati, as large Bengali, Hindu and immigrant Muslim gangs attacked the Assamese villages of Chamaria, close to the highway leading to Gwalpada. Nothing was left standing in the village, although all but 5 of its occupants fled to safety. The attackers had a gala time as the entire police force available around Guwahati had been sucked into a security effort for Mrs. Gandhi's public meeting at the railway township of Maligaon on the outskirts of Guwahati. Chamaria was ample indication of the shape of things to come. All along the route, I came across bands of Assamese armed with spears, daws and sharpened bamboo stakes, stalking the countryside looking for revenge. Most youngsters had large vermilion tilaks on their foreheads and blood in the eyes. At Chamaria, there was no shortage of volunteers to guide you to affected localities, which, quote unquote, will set your blood boiling. The most shocking was the way a team of Guwahati Medical College doctors led by Rajya Sabha member Dinesh Goswami conducted itself. While Goswami generally kept quiet, the young doctors repeatedly and loudly wondered how anyone who had seen the destruction would like to call himself Indian anymore. On its way back, the doctors' team saw the unattended wounded lying on the outskirts of Chamaria but drove on nonchalantly without bothering to help. These were the Bengalis wounded in retaliatory attacks by the Assamese. Chauvinism and hypocrisy had effectively taken care of the Hippocratic oath. Later, incidentally, the Guwahati Medical College ambulances were to become the agitators' main mode of transport. So once again, everybody was killing everybody, whoever got an opportunity. Which brings us to the big issue. The big issue was the Nellie Massacre. That's where the commission gives us a lot of wisdom, but also a little bit of a cop-out. That expression will keep popping up again and again in this episode. Now, in Nellie, we know that by my count, more than 3,000 people were killed, all of them Muslim. By the commission's count, more than 2,000 people were killed. That's all right. The attackers were Lalung. Now, first of all, could this have been prevented? So there is the story of that wireless message with Zahiruddin Ahmad, the SHO, as we call them, station house officer, or OC, officer commanding as they say in Assam, of the Nagaon police station. It was then called Nagaon, now Nagaon. He sent to the commandant of the nearby Assam Police Battalion and also to nearby police stations. Police station at Jagi Road, the jurisdictional police station of Nellie, and also the SDPO, subdivisional police officer in Marigaon, again under whose jurisdiction Nellie fell. And this is a message that is sent on 15th of Feb, which said that he had got reliable information that thousands of people had gathered with weapons and they were going to attack the Muslims of Nellie, who were very scared. Now, for 3 days, this message was sitting in the system. Nobody took any precautions. So if somebody had acted on this, Nellie Massacre could have been prevented. First of all, let me tell you, this wireless message would not have seen the light of day. This would have got buried. This would have got buried in government files. It's just that Arun Shourie, when he was working on this investigation for India Today magazine, he was told by somebody that this exists. And he asked me to go to Nagaon police station and find his wireless message. And I found Zahiruddin Ahmad in the local mosque. And he told me, and that is something that I have written about and spoken about in an earlier first person second draft. I will share a link with you. He shared that message with me, and that was published on the cover of India Today magazine. That's why it became a part of history. The commission says, all right, they sent the message, But then the commission starts casting doubts on the motives and actions of everybody. So they say, how come people of Nellie did not go to their jurisdictional police station to complain, but they went to Nagaon? Hello, if you are illiterate people and you are so scared and you see massacres all around you, you will not be thinking about what my jurisdictional police station is. Then they also say that the local SP did not know. The commandant of the armed police battalion also did not know. In the SDPO's office, it was sitting in his tray, so he did not see it on time. So whose responsibility was it? Ultimately, the only person they blame is sub-inspector level man called BK Chetia. And they say he was going to one of these villages, Muladhari village, where a humongous massacre took place. And he said that he could not go there because he heard that there were people drowning in the Kopili river, and he went upstream to save them. So the commission says sarcastically that could they have really waited for him to come and save them 5 kilometers upstream? And then they make fun of his claim that he saved 200 people from drowning, suggesting that he could have gone and saved lives, but he did not. Beyond that, the commission says nothing. However, the commission still says that this was not a communal attack. Now, let me give you some perspective on this, and we will then close there, because this was a debate at that point also. While we knew that in various parts of the state, different communities were killing any communities they could latch on to, or any communities they could target. These were old enmities. In Nellie, only one community was the victim, that is Muslims. So nearly 3,000, maybe a little bit above by my count, Muslims had been killed. Who was the killers? Who were the attackers is an important point. The attackers were the Lalungs. Lalungs are a very small tribe. In 1983, they were anything between 85,000 to 1 lakh. I took government figures, and in the book I say 85,000. It was a very small minority. They had been pushed into the foothills from the plains where they used to live earlier. They are a scheduled tribe. Now Lalung, the name itself is a pejorative. Lalung means, La means water. In the local language, Lung means lifted. So people who've been lifted from the water or rescued from the water. People who've been lifted from below. So Lalungs have changed their name. They now prefer to be called Tivas. In fact, that region is now an autonomous tribal district. It's called Tiva Autonomous District, and it has its own elected tribal council. Now, there was a little background. On the 14th, it looks like 5 Lalungs were kidnapped, allegedly by Muslims, and killed. 2 of them were young women. That is also something that the commission notes. And the word spread that they had been gang raped before being killed. And that's when a gathering of Lalung Rajas took place. And in the Darbar, they decided, or somebody instigated them to kill 700 for each one of their own dead. Now, I don't know if this Darbar took place. This was hearsay. There was also hearsay that they were instigated by some people from the RSS, particularly one ASU leader, Joynath Sharma. His name was spelled Joy then. Now it's come to be spelled Zoii. Joynath Sarma, or Horma as it would be pronounced in Assam. So Joynath Horma was accused of having instigated them. He faced many cases, etc., finally got exonerated. Nothing stuck to him. He stayed on in ASU. There was a time when Muslims and ASU wanted him out, but he survived there. In 1991, he became an MLA for AGP until 2001. So he won 2 terms. In 1999, he was also attacked. His convoy was attacked by Alpha, where 2 of his family members and his 2 security guards were killed. He miraculously survived. He was a minister in the government. And then what happened to him? In 2016, the man who was seen particularly by the secular activists as the prime mover, RSS man, or quote-unquote RSS man who instigated the Lalungs to go and carry out this horrible massacre, he joined the Congress party in 2016. So he got his secular Ganga Snan. He contested elections on the Congress ticket in 2016. He lost. Where is he now? He's now back with AGP as vice president of the party. That itself is a significant example and an important insight into the nature of this violence, and the reason why the commission says, actually in my view quite correctly, that this violence was not communal. This was more about land, language, ethnicity, and identity in that order. Now that said, what is this typewriter doing? So this is a typewriter, it's brother, it's made in Japan. You can see at the back, Nagoya, Japan. This is from an era when India did not make any decent typewriters, small typewriters. This was bought in a smuggled goods market in Agartala. All these cities on the border had a China bazaar, right? It was bought there. It was bought there. Much of my Assam coverage was written on this. This book was fully written on this typewriter at home. Just reading this commission report reminded me of this. So I dusted this out and I thought I will flaunt this to you. So this poor machine worked as hard as I did in that period, and it's one of my most prized possessions even now. And this book has been out of print for a very long time. I found this copy someplace. It doesn't have its jacket. Just looking for it, day before yesterday, I found on Amazon somebody was selling 3 copies, so I've ordered them. If one of them comes with a jacket, I will display it to you. And when the book was published, it got me a royalty of, hold your breath, 765 rupees. That's all. And now I've ordered these 3 copies for 4,000 rupees each. So you know what? When something becomes antique, it acquires value.